Florida, and we're in the city of Detroit. I don't think we have to convince more young people to move to Detroit. I think it's already happening, and the people who want to be here and are finding it. I know that everybody wants to raise a flag and say, young people come here, it's happening. And like that's the single probably worst thing a city can do, is stick up its arm and say, please come here, or we're with it, or we're cool. I think what Detroit offers is for young people, or interesting people, or engaged people, artists, innovators, musicians, designers, city builders, placemakers, it offers something for them, and it doesn't have to advertise, you know, it'll just happen. So I think what's really interesting is this incredible shift back to the city. It's just amazing to see how fast, you know, and it's not just Detroit, how fast urban centers are coming back, you know. For how long they were written off, and then you just see it. It almost seems like as if overnight. I mean, this has been going on for decades, but all of a sudden it hits this critical mass and just takes off. I think it's all about the infrastructure and the architecture. I mean, look at these buildings. You know, and even though people talk about urban removal and urban, you know, renewal, there's still, I mean, look, obviously there's some lots there where stuff was torn down, but a lot of the fabric is still here in all of our cities. So, you know, it's going to be a lot harder to remake abandoned suburbs than to remake, the infrastructure's all here. But when you look at a place that has made a world historical impact, and of course there's Paris and Vienna and Rome and New York and London, but when you look at a city of say, the second tier that's made world historical impact, it's hard to find one that has made the kind of impact Detroit has as a creative center. It is clearly the birthplace of modern advanced industry. And it's not just Henry Ford. Of course, Henry Ford played a huge role with the invention of modern continuous process assembly line. He invented the continuous flow assembly line. So he invented modern manufacturing industry. But not just that. All of the body makers and technology makers and automotive parts makers and all of the electronic component suppliers that surrounded that. The center of great industrial design and architecture. And then, of course, the incredible history of musical innovation that pulsates through this city, you know, beginning clearly before Motown in the 60s, beginning with the movement of blues musicians and R&B players and jazz musicians from the South up to the North with the Great Migration. Of course, the Smokey Robinson and Jackie Wilson and Motown. But then all of the innovations in rock and roll. I mean, if you look at the history of rock and roll, there is no place, including Liverpool and Leeds and Manchester, that define the birthplace of rock and roll. Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, Iggy Pop and the Stooges, the MC5. I'm defining the later movement into punk in New York and London being the seminal move there. And then, of course, the birthplace of electronic music. And then finally, the birthplace of the rock renaissance with Jack White and the White Stripes. So this creative thing, whatever it is, pulsates in the DNA of this city. And I think what's really interesting is how much that's a product of overcoming adversity. You can make a life here and it can be affordable. And so I think Detroit has already turned the corner. It's already attracting the kind, and that's what it wants to do. I think the biggest mistake would be to try to attract the wrong kind. And maybe that's been the mistake all along. That's for so many years, cities wanted to attract, you know, the next big thing. What's happening in Detroit through decades of adversity is that gradually it's begun to attract the right kind of people, the kind of people that want to help rebuild its great city.